Tonight on Nova, peril at 30,000 feet.
Are you scared? I just decided an hour ago to proceed across the Atlantic, so it's a go.
A balloon race becomes a brush with death. And skill, stamina, and science are the key to survival.
I don't think I'm willing to risk going into Libyan airspace.
Turbulence might be more than just a scare factor. It just might slam them into a mountain.
Climb on board for danger in the jet stream. Major funding for NOVA is provided by the Park Foundation, dedicated to education and quality television, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and viewers like you.
January 1997, 3 teams risked their lives in one of the last remaining aeronautical challenges, to fly nonstop around the world by balloon. An adventure that tests scientific ingenuity and individual bravery to the point of obsession. The chairman of the Virgin Airline and entertainment empire, Richard Branson, is a man used to the limelight. He leads the British team, which plans to take off from Morocco.
Up to the ladder, Ben! Richard, can you give us a wave, Richard?
I don't think there's any adventure that I could do in my lifetime that could top this. I mean, it must be one of the ultimate challenges left to mankind, without wanting to over-exaggerate.
Wave!
Branson may be the most flamboyant member of his team, but the inspiration comes from Swedish-born balloon builder Per Lindström.
The known dangers we can handle. I mean, we have equipment for that. The unknown one, like the severe weather, we can't. I mean, we can't steer away like an airline. It can divert. We can't do that.
A former pilot in the Swedish Air Force, Lindström was in Morocco with Branson 12 months earlier when they failed to get off the ground. This time, they have an even bigger balloon. The third team member is one of the engineers. Alex Ritchie has helped build all Richard Branson's record-attempting balloons, but this is the first time he will fly. Branson and Lindström are a seasoned partnership. In gigantic hot air balloons, they've flown the Atlantic and the Pacific, but not without problems.
I lost average speed.
They came close to losing their lives on both attempts, but lived to tell a record-breaking tale.
2.7.
Lindström knows that extreme balloon flights are fraught with uncertainty. A circumnavigation will push technology to the limits. Even pinpricks in the giant balloon can reduce the chances of making it around the world. The balloon, built in England by the Lindström Balloon Factory, is the largest balloon of its type ever built. Lindström has chosen a sophisticated aircraft-style pressurized capsule. On the outside, 6 tanks weighing a ton each will be filled with propane gas to fuel burners and power 2 onboard engines that will compress the thin air at altitude to keep the balloonist alive. With such a heavy payload, a balloon of this size has never flown before. No one really knows how it will behave. They'll soon find out. They're just waiting for the right winds at their launch site in Marrakesh to take off.
I'm just saying, it can't be any quicker than 20 minutes. No. So you want to be... Psychiatrist Bertrand Piccard leads the Swiss team.
The co-pilot is Belgian balloonist Wim Verstraeten. They've raised $2 million from Swiss watch manufacturer Breitling to make the attempt. Bertrand Piccard comes from an extraordinary family. His grandfather, Auguste, was the first man to enter the stratosphere in 1931. His father, Jacques, has dived deeper than any man in history.
In my family, I had always the example of people making scientific adventures. My grandfather and my father, but also all the people that I met when I was a child. All these people gave me the taste of adventure, of science, of exploration. And I was deeply impressed by that when I was a child.
The other teams plan to fly with heavy tanks of propane gas. But the Swiss engineers have opted for a yet untested system that uses kerosene to fuel the burners. A liquid at normal temperatures, kerosene can be contained in lightweight rubber bags, stowed both outside and inside their capsule. The Breitling Orbiter is being built by Cameron Balloons in England. Piccard has brought his daughter Monique here to check on progress. To save even more weight, Piccard and Verstraeten are using an advanced super lightweight carbon fiber gondola. Using a system similar to the space shuttle, the crew will breathe air that's recirculated, chemically scrubbed, and mixed with onboard oxygen. With less weight to carry, the Breitling balloon is much smaller than the Virgin craft, and the crew hopes easier to control.
Et puis ici, il y a encore une radio.
The most courageous, or foolhardy, of the teams is due to take off from the Busch Baseball Stadium in St. Louis, Missouri. Chicago businessman Steve Fossett is spending $300,000 of his own money on the cheapest and simplest of the challenges. He plans to go solo, flying alone for up to 3 weeks. Remarkably, Steve Fossett hadn't stepped into a balloon until 1993.
I deliberately entered the sport of ballooning for the purpose of trying to be the first person to fly around the world by balloon.
In 1995, Fossett made his first attempt. Taking off from the old Olympic Stadium in South Korea, he flew for 3 days, landing in Canada in the longest distance balloon flight in history. The next year, he tried again. He launched from South Dakota, but the outer skin of his balloon tore to shreds. He never managed to leave the North American continent.
This is very disappointing and embarrassing, and I didn't come anywhere close to making it around the world.
Fossett is forced to fly at a lower altitude than the other challengers because his tiny capsule is unpressurized. The pressure inside and outside the capsule is always the same.
I want to fly in an unpressurized capsule. I decided that, well, I better physically prepare myself for this. And just as a mountain climber would, I sought to acclimatize. So I had this personal capsule in my home, and I was able to sleep in it. And I could set the altitude to 12,000, 15,000, or 18,000 feet. Well, I don't think anyone is needed to take on acclimatization in preparation for a balloon flight. People like balloons. They're interesting, they're pretty, but there's also a romance associated with a round-the-world flight. And this harkens back to a different age, a 19th century type of exploration situation.
All the global challengers have balloons that share a common design. It's called a rosier, after the Frenchman who invented it in the early days of ballooning. It was in Paris in 1783 that Pilatre de Rosier took off in a crude hot air balloon made of paper. It flew for half an hour. The principle was simple. Hot air rises. That's because it's less dense than the surrounding colder air. Trap the hot air in a bag, make it carry a load, and you have a basic hot air balloon. Early hot air balloons couldn't stay up for long. The weight of fuel to keep the air hot was the problem. A newly discovered, lighter-than-air gas, hydrogen, seemed to offer a solution. It could take a balloon up without being heated. 2 years after his historic first flight, de Rosier invented a balloon that he hoped would make long-distance flight possible. It combined the new hydrogen gas with hot air. The hot air would heat the hydrogen, causing it to expand, and making it lighter still to give the balloon even more lifting power. In his new balloon, de Rosier tried to fly the English Channel. Sparks from his onboard heater ignited the hydrogen. It exploded. The first man to fly was also the first to die in an air accident. The modern version of de Rosier's balloon has one important difference. Inert helium gas, unknown in the 18th century, replaces the hydrogen. Underneath a sphere of helium, burners heat a cone of hot air. The hot air applies gentle heating to the helium, making it less dense and increasing its lifting power. At 1.1 million cubic feet, the Virgin Global Challenger is the largest Rosier balloon ever built. The Breitling Orbiter balloon is just half the size, at 500,000 cubic feet. With Fossett's balloon, just a quarter the volume of Virgin's. Making it around the world in a balloon is both technically and physically challenging. The race will take 3 weeks. All 3 balloons need to catch the fastest air currents that for a few short weeks in midwinter girdle the Earth. These winds, called jet streams, are great rivers of air hundreds of miles wide at 20,000 to 40,000 feet. Fossett's balloon will be flying lower, just beneath the jet stream. The Virgin team has chosen to take off from Morocco to catch the subtropical jet stream that sweeps east across North Africa. The crew arrive at the launch site with high hopes. Marrakesh is usually directly under the subtropical jet stream, which can reach speeds up to 250 miles per hour. At the moment, the jet streams are strong, but running hundreds of miles southwest of Morocco.
Yeah, so you're flying a hot air balloon? You're having a gas balloon at any normal altitude with all the way to the ground, that's ballast.
We'll have very good conditions, we think, tomorrow morning for takeoff. We're not going to have very fast conditions the first day actually into the jet. But once we're in the jet, we think we can get tucked in there and stay there really the whole way to the Pacific.
The Moroccans turned up in style to see the balloon off. But engineer Alex Ritchie is impatient to get off the ground.
Very happy to see you all just fading away beneath me.
Making a careful choice about the time of launch is crucial if they are to be swept southeast at just the right moment to catch the jet stream. Inserting the balloon into the jet can be fraught with danger. These fast winds could shear the balloon apart. Rosier balloons have natural float altitudes, the height at which they will stop rising. That is where the lifting force of the helium filling the balloon is balanced by the weight of the balloon and capsule. The balloon should stay at this height until the temperature drops at night and the helium begins to cool and lose its lift. The Virgin balloon is designed to float at 30,000 feet. As the balloon rises into thinner air, the helium will expand until the balloon is fully inflated. Any excess helium then spills down long fabric safety tubes. The balloon needs to be big. It must hold enough helium to counterbalance the weight of 3 men, 6 tons of fuel, and an aluminum capsule filled with sophisticated navigation and communication equipment. The final launch preparations are completed in a hurry, so the countdown can begin.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The launch is clean, and the balloon rises easily to altitude.
We settled down at 29,750 feet, exactly what we'd been told we would do. We headed off over the Atlas Mountains.
Balloons go where the wind takes them. They can't be steered in any conventional sense. But prevailing winds vary in speed and direction at different heights. By changing your altitude, you can, to some degree, influence where you go.
Thanks, Martin. We'll talk in an hour's time. Over.
By using their onboard burners, the team members can heat the helium, causing the balloon to climb.
Per?
They also carry lead, water, and extra propane as ballast. Throwing it out reduces weight and lets the balloon climb. It's not an exact science. Early in the flight, they learned that the ground crew failed to unlock the safety catches, or couplings, on the capsule's propane fuel tanks. Engineer Alex Ritchie realizes this is a crucial error.
Each tank is connected to the capsule by 2 fuel hoses. There's a quick disconnect coupling in each of these hoses, which is designed to break free when the tank is released. The locking mechanism should be released shortly before takeoff. Clearly that didn't actually happen.
The tanks serve a dual function. They contain pressurized propane gas as fuel for the burners, but they also act as emergency ballast. Weighing a ton each, they can be dropped quickly. With the safety couplings on, that's not possible.
The ultimate implication, if you can't release the couplings, is that you won't have enough releasable ballast in case of a dramatic descent. You will hit the ground.
Despite the problems with the tanks, the flight is going well. The balloon has been at 30,000 feet for 3.5 hours. Meanwhile, the exhausted launch team flies back to the Project Control Center in London. All long-distance balloon flights need backup. The ground crew in London clears the way ahead.
Could you call him as a matter of urgency, please, and see what assistance he could give, if any?
The control center confirms overflight permissions. They give the pilots weather reports and technical advice. And should the balloonist get into trouble, they alert search and rescue services.
It's beginning to get dark. We're soon to leave Morocco and head over Algeria. Losing altitude quite fast. Trying to sort of calculate how much heat to safely put in the envelope.
During the day, the balloon stayed up without using the burners. As night approaches and the sun goes down, the helium cools and the balloon begins to fall. To counteract this, Lindstrand plans to burn fuel to warm the helium, or at least that's the theory.
Just as it started getting dark, we were going down at an incredibly rapid rate. We didn't have the fuel tank to release, which would stop us from plummeting downwards.
17,000. 21 knots.
Lindstrand is burning as hard as he can to warm the helium, but the balloon is falling rapidly. Calculations based on the performances of smaller test balloons are proving wildly misleading. They need to drop a fuel tank to stop the fall, but they can't. The safety couplings are still on.
It's going to be sunset and not very long. That sun is just above the horizon.
Remember, this balloon is incredibly big. The size of the balloon was obviously causing big problems.
As our descent increased, we got into a more serious situation.
The rate of climb indicator just didn't want to stop. The balloon started doing a couple of death dives. At that point, could not obviously drop the fuel tanks. The only thing we could drop was ballast.
First it was water and lead shot, then anything they could grab to save their lives.
Alex!
Alex was just standing down in the hatch, just, passing out the boxes, and then we just hurtling them out. Still going down.
I passed boxes of water up to Richard. The top door was open. He heaved out the top door.
Fair amount of food, all the oil, and really just anything we could lay our hands on, and we were still descending.
And we must have moved 3/4 of a ton.
Tumbling down towards the desert floor in pitch black in the Atlas Mountains is not my idea of fun.
At last the balloon stops falling and they climb slightly. But then, as the helium cools even further, they start to descend once more.
Decided that a tank had to go, and then it was imperative, of course, to make sure the tank would come free when he pressed the button.
As an engineer, Alex Ritchie knew the balloon in detail. He now climbed out onto the roof of the capsule to unlock the safety latches and release the tanks.
We had about 3 minutes to get the couplings off. Neither Rory, myself, nor Per, I think, could have got those couplings off in 3 minutes.
It was dark out there, so I wasn't able to see the ground. There was just a black void, and maybe that was a good thing. Per pressed the button, the cutter fired perfectly, and I actually saw the tank fall away.
Twice, the balloon was within a minute of crashing into the ground. At one point, they were less than 1,000 feet from the desert floor. The ordeal is starting to take its toll. Virgin's control center in London is tracking the capsule's height and position via satellite. They become increasingly alarmed.
Go on. It's just shot up from 5,000 feet up to 11,000.
I'm afraid we've had to dump all ballast, including all our water supplies, food supplies, oil, into the desert to avoid a crash landing.
I was asking myself, what on earth am I doing up here again? I was saying to myself, if I get out of this, for God's sake, don't do it again.
With their supplies gone and the balloon hard to control, Per decides to end the flight.
There's a possibility of a rough landing, and we do have 3,000 kilos of propane on board.
The pilots have just informed us that they've crossed the Reese Mountains and they've begun a descent for a landing.
Yes, it would be good to get down fairly soon. There are some power lines some considerable distance ahead, maybe a mile.
Alex watches for obstacles as Per tries to set the balloon down as gently as possible.
Okay.
When it was apparent that we were going to be on the ground within 4 or 5 or 6 seconds, I came back down again and strapped myself into my seat. Obviously anticipating the blow, you don't know how severe it's going to be.
As soon as the capsule lands, Per releases the balloon. Free of its payload, it shoots into the air.
Keep it there. Wow. Brilliant.
Wow. Look at it behave, exactly it behaves. Slits up, turns upside down and comes straight down.
Once the envelope is cut away, it very rapidly inverts, which allows the helium to spill out. The bladder, the diaphragm, which is between the helium part and the hot air part, ruptures. So very soon it deflates and comes down, and in fact landed only about 100 yards from where we were. Absolute relief. It's almost explosive, really. Then You look around, you notice how quiet everything is.
But we had a perfect landing and everything is secure and we're all perfectly fit. Okay, I just tried to phone Mum, but it was engaged, as it always is. If I don't get a chance... Pardon? Oh, she's on the phone to the press. See.
The Virgin Global Challenger team had flown for 20 hours and covered barely 400 miles. In the world's largest Rosier balloon, they had been lucky to escape with their lives. The Breitling Orbiter crew is preparing to leave at dawn, launching close to home in the Swiss Alps. First, they will ride gentle winds that flow south to get to the fast winds over Africa. They plan to catch the same subtropical jet stream the Virgin team intended to take. Regular satellite images of the Earth reveal wind speed and direction at all altitudes. With this information, meteorologists can forecast 2 days ahead where the prevailing winds will flow.
The weather conditions were exactly what we were waiting for. It means completely calm on the ground, north winds going to North Africa, about 100 kilometers per hour, and then a nice jet stream above North Africa going north of Himalaya.
It's like astronauts for the first time going to the moon. We were the first time trying to get around the world as a balloon.
I think also that we should have had a few hours more for all the check and for a few other things, but it's like this. It's like this. My little daughter. Bonjour. Merci mon amour. Merci mon trésor. Je te donne les clés de la voiture.
It is a critical moment. A slow liftoff because of temperature inversion. It is spectacular nonetheless.
We think that the extreme inversion probably means that you're a little heavy for it, so you need to lose some ballast if possible, if not you must go. The climbing rate actually is about 1.5 to 2 meters per second.
The church bells were ringing all the time, and taking off at that moment was some part of heaven. Very special.
Let's hope that he takes some heat from the sun now. Well, he takes a lot of heat now, it's fine.
I just have a few pictures in my head. The Mont Blanc, the mountains of Châteaudet, with the Swiss Alps. It was great, but we were so busy.
Unknown to the pilots, as their balloon struggles to clear the highest alpine peaks, disaster is about to strike. In a bizarre echo of the problems on the Virgin flight, the Breitling ground crew has failed to tighten one tiny clip. It attaches a fuel hose to a kerosene tank inside the capsule. As they climb, the air pressure decreases and liquid kerosene oozes onto the floor.
We saw some liquid leaking on both corners of the gondola. And in the beginning we thought it was only some snow melting, and when we looked at it from closer, we saw it was kerosene.
Bertrand and I were very, very, very frightened and surprised.
The kerosene fumes burned our eyes, burned the throat. We started to take all the hatches out from the floor, and so there was kerosene everywhere. We couldn't fix the leak because we didn't know where exactly the problem was.
Kerosene continued to pour onto the floor of the gondola. After 3 hours, Picard and Verstraeten were choking on the fumes. They decide to ditch in the Mediterranean.
They are around 1,000 meters above sea level, and landing is foreseen within the next 15 to 30 minutes.
In Geneva, the ground crew is coordinating all communications with the stricken balloon. Representing Cameron Balloons, who had built both the Breitling and the Fossett craft, was Alan Noble.
After more than a year's work, and after a brilliant launch, to feel that the whole thing was going to rag so quickly.
He says, we are ready for ditching. Please tell everyone that all seems to be really okay. I don't say that to reassure anyone, it is true.
We stabilized a few meters above the surface of the sea. We ditched between the helicopter of the Coast Guard, the airplane of the French Army.
30 kilometers southeast of Montpellier, and they said that they landed at 1403.
When we saw the balloon in the water, we said, well, it's really a very big waste.
Picard and Verstraeten's attempt ends in just 6 hours. Their balloon is a write-off.
2 out of 2 failures is a pretty bad record. Isn't it time we called a halt to this very expensive game before someone gets badly hurt?
Well, so far, nobody's been hurt at all.
There's only one challenger left in the race. Steve Fossett is completing his final preparations for an early evening launch. Fossett's takeoff site is Sub-Zero Busch Stadium in downtown St. Louis.
Actually, when I walk out on the field and see how well organized my team has all of this, that actually get a great deal of confidence that this is all going to work out.
He has this really valuable quality, which is that he can sit in a cold, dark box for weeks on end and be happy. He does this for fun.
We've got a fair amount of wind at the top of the stadium. Looks like maybe 10 knots of wind, but that's really close to our limits. We'd forecast substantially less, so we're going to hold out a half hour to an hour and a half to see whether we can get winds more like 5 knots. Make a prettier launch.
Working from his home, a key member of Fossett's team is meteorologist Lou Ballonis. He's been running a series of flight path projections based on satellite data.
We have quite an extensive telecommunications array to help us with this project. A meteorologist can get nearly any type of meteorological data that they need right into their home in order to support balloon operations halfway around the world.
Ballonis has found winds that can carry Fossett straight out into the Atlantic. But he's also spotted a problem. The winds ahead fork in 2 directions, with the strength of the safer northerly track beginning to wane.
The southern route had more political problems. Libya, Iraq, Iran, on to Afghanistan and China. Northern route wasn't a free ride because I still had to deal with Russia, and Russia was reticent to give approval.
Move this balloon over that way. I don't want to move.
Days after his own global attempt, Richard Branson comes to see the launch. He's never met Steve Fossett. In fact, Branson isn't sure what Fossett looks like.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, get ready to go. Just what are the adventures he's going to have in that? Yes, I am Steve Fossett.
Yeah, are you asking? Sorry.
How are you? You probably thought that was.
I think you're a braver man than I.
The wind drops slightly. With 2 tons of propane gas and open burners, a miscalculation could mean that the balloon might not clear the stadium.
It's going to hit the stadium. I'm not sure how dangerous my equipment is from this explosion standpoint. Obviously, it's a lot of propane, but it is very well contained in these cylinders.
Any further delay, and their weather window will be lost.
That way. We need to get that rope undone right there. We'll do with the ladder. All right.
A little more.
Okay, let's have weight on and hold the balloon down.
Fossett climbs to 18,000 feet to catch 50-mile-an-hour winds to carry him across the country and out into the Atlantic. He breathes oxygen because he's on his own, and it is a real physical effort to keep the balloon up. Fossett works the burners, forcing the balloon to climb into the cold, thin air.
Really exactly as forecast, and I'm on track to go out over the Atlantic from North Carolina and over...
One of Fossett's heaters failed, and he spent the first night at minus 30 degrees trying to fix it. There was no chance of sleep. Air traffic control and every passing aircraft wanted to chat.
So, Steve, are you there by yourself? Well, yes, this is a solo flight. Are you scared? No, it's a big decision. I just decided an hour ago to proceed across the Atlantic, so it's a go.
Snowstorms close in on Fossett's control center in downtown Chicago.
We are still over land, but we are only roughly
foraying outside into the Atlantic Ocean.
20 miles west of the eastern coast.
He's going for the coast of Europe.
Ground speed 65 knots. Hot damn. Love it. It would be a
The
problem.
entire control team are volunteers. Gas balloonist Bruce Comstock and Nick Saum have half a century of flying experience between them. Bo Kemper is project manager, handling overflight permissions.
If this were a space shot, NASA would be saying everything's going great.
In Nebraska, Balonis continues to track the balloon via the worldwide Inmarsat satellite system. Although Fossett can use voice communications, he prefers to stay in touch using email. Transmitted by radio and then telephone line to Chicago and Omaha, it uses up very little of his limited onboard battery power.
You're up there alone. There's no voices, and you're flying, and pretty soon, these communications that you're having almost have a voice of their own, and you can almost imagine the sound of the voice of the person who's sending you the message. They become very real, very animated messages.
He's not chatty at all. He sits up there and eats his M&Ms and reads War and Peace and presses on.
Fossett is carrying the world's first autopilot for a balloon. In essence, it's a computer program that uses changes in altimeter readings to switch the burners on and off, keeping the balloon in level flight. It was designed by Bruce Comstock to let Fossett catch some sleep.
You can actually set this autopilot to fly a rosier within the required limits for instrument flight. And I don't think a lot of human beings can do that for hours on end, and this will do it forever.
What it does is it fires the burners in a sequence determined by computer algorithms to maintain level flight of the balloon. If I want to change the altitude of the balloon, I will get on the burners myself and change the altitude and then reset the autopilot to keep it level.
Steve took off over here in St. Louis, came on down across the Appalachians, Piedmonts, on out. He went across Bermuda early this morning in the dark, but he went dead across it.
The control team can see from Fossett's emails that he is using too much propane and should be dumping more ballast. Fossett has chosen to fly higher and faster to get to the mid-Atlantic before the northerly winds disappear. But he is wasting precious fuel, reducing his chances of making it around the world.
It only takes being a little bit too heavy, just a little bit too heavy, to really run the fuel consumption up. I'd bet my bottom dollar that he's heating at midday, and if he's heating at midday, he needs to look around that capsule and start pitching stuff out the hatch.
Despite his efforts, Fossett arrives at the mid-Atlantic fork too late. He has missed the northern track. The winds now pull him south, heading toward a band of potentially hostile countries.
Do you have any telephone number for ATC in Libya?
I don't want to touch Libya. I mean, I can't.
No, I know that.
Let me just explain to you what the official U.S. policy on Americans in Libya is.
Right.
It's not legal currently for an American citizen to use his passport.
The team gets nowhere through official channels. But there is a brotherhood of balloonists. Kemper turns to Branson for help. He knows that the Virgin balloon had been granted permission to overfly Libya.
Could use your help on Libya.
Right. Is there any communication at all between America and Libya at the moment?
The president, I'm sure, and the U.S. government's, doesn't want to dance with, Gaddafi.
Is it 9? What time will they cross Libya?
They're going to be there.
If we can explain to Colonel Gaddafi the spirit that Steve is doing this voyage, that he may give him permission to come through. I know Steve is extremely worried about flying over it if he doesn't get permission.
Fossett had already flown the Pacific in 1995, so by crossing the Atlantic now, he became the first balloonist ever to fly both the Pacific and Atlantic Ocean solo.
This is 90 degrees west, and over here, right about here is 0. That's a quarter of the way. So Steve's in here somewhere, so he almost can't avoid the first quarter.
A detour around Libya will cost Fossett a lot. Using his emergency satellite phone, he gives Branson a call.
How are you feeling? I feel well. The only place we know how I'm going to solve these problems.
Okay, well, we're in discussions with the Libyans. We have now formally requested permission for you to cross over, and we've asked for a response by
2:30 today.
It is another 15 hours before they receive an answer. Libya denies permission to overfly.
Richard Branson has just done a lot of work real hard trying to get that, and it didn't work. So that's the way it goes.
On his present track, Fossett is due to pass through Algeria, Niger, and Chad, and then enter Libya.
So now I'm in central Algeria, flying south at 24,000 feet. And I don't think I'm willing to risk going into Libyan airspace. I'd be forced to land short. And I'm told that Chad's a tough place to land, not only because of the terrain, but also there's landmines. Presumably not many roads. There's no roads anywhere. I haven't seen a road in hours of flying.
In Chicago and Omaha, the team is worried. Lou Balonis has been running computer projections based on wind strength and direction reports received from satellite. He has spotted winds at 10 to 18,000 feet that just might allow the balloon to miss Libya completely.
It's going to be complicated, and it's going to involve Lou to a great extent. Lou's going to have to fly the balloon and just tell Steve, okay, go up, go down.
Fossett will have to fly low and slow to avoid Libya. At times, venting off some of his helium during the day and burning fuel to stay steady at precise altitudes. He will waste time and resources, further diminishing his chances of getting around the world.
If the forecast is correct and we have high confidence in it, it's going to take them right underneath Libya, and then we're going to climb them back up to 24,000 feet, and that's going to scoot them on through Saudi Arabia and eventually India, Pakistan area. And then once out in here, we have to recompute where he's going.
Fossett's speed drops to just 30 miles an hour, but his meteorologist predictions are correct. As he skirts Libya, he breaks his own world distance record of 5,436 miles. Then, out of the blue, the Libyans contact Branson. They've had a change of heart.
We officially have permission from Libya.
Excellent.
Libya has gone public and said, yeah, we're giving him permission.
Okay.
And so we're going to go with that.
We'd just about given up hope on getting permission from Libya, but now permission has been granted and I'm flying fast.
Fossett changes his strategy. He burns and climbs to 27,000 feet. For the first time, his balloon enters the lower part of the jet stream. He's flying much higher than he had ever planned. His ground speed rises above 100 miles per hour.
I've just entered Libyan airspace. I'm in the jet stream, traveling between 105 and 111 knots. So it's not going to take long to cross over this southern tip of Libya. About 1 hour, I think.
Fossett got through Libya unscathed, and he's entering Sudanese airspace. The Saudi Arabians have given permission, but Fossett is still buzzed by 2 fighter planes over their territory. It's his 5th day in the air.
Steve's quite tired, actually, also because the heaters in the capsule haven't worked reliably, especially when he was at higher altitudes, and that's made it very difficult for him to get enough sleep.
Probably the longest sleep that I had was 30 minutes long. Most sleeps were more of the 5-minute variety. I had a lot of air traffic control communications to do.
Although his autopilot is working flawlessly, Fossett is uncertain how much further he can go. He's tired and irritable. As he approaches the Pakistan border, he drops a bombshell via email.
Over Iran along the Gulf of Oman under Pakistan ATC now considering landing near Calcutta or Dhaka tomorrow. We'll fly flight level 180 tonight. Cabin heaters should light at that level. Need sleep. That's the real message.
Fossett, exhausted and at 24,000 feet, begins to disagree with the controllers in Chicago. While he wants to put down in India, the ground crew feel that he should go further.
Talking about various possibilities, and Burma is one, various places and other places in Southeast Asia are options, but possibly even Alaska is a long shot.
How is it that all the technical wizardry craps out at the wrong time?
All communications go down. Fossett is out of contact, and there's a new concern. The present track will sweep the balloon into the high Himalayas.
Several of the mountains here are 20,000 feet, 22 up to 27,000 feet. In a gas balloon at high speeds with mountains around you, turbulence might be more than just a scare factor. It just might slam them into a mountain, or it could slam them into the ground.
Fossett is unaware that his path is about to veer north. Communications are down. There's no way of telling him. To add to his woes, thunderstorms now lie dead ahead.
You don't play with thunderstorms. A balloon is a very, very fragile piece of equipment compared to a thunderstorm. You land.
He's flailing around India now on his own.
We haven't heard from him since for an hour.
There's something wrong with his handset at the other end. That was air traffic control in Calcutta. They have had no information about the balloon since 1324.
My assumption and our team's assumption is that he'll be landing.
It works.
Hang on, we just got a message.
We got a message from Steve. Plan to land east coast of India, south of Calcutta.
Fossett starts to come down, but not to land yet. He's determined to break the world duration record for a balloon. This means staying up until the middle of the day, flying right through thunderstorms.
Once we saw the storms, we advised him to land at dawn. Steve doesn't always take advice well, particularly when you're sort of 5 or 6 hours off duration record.
Can you tell him that there are lots of power lines in the area?
Jesus slowed down quite a bit.
Okay.
It will be 6 more hours before the duration record is broken.
Message from Steve. First line of thunderstorms didn't kill me. 1,000 feet, or 700 above ground level.
He wouldn't have been able to see the thunderstorms. He probably didn't have much visibility at all. But he sat there, and we ticked off the hours.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now. Yes.
Great job.
Fossett now prepares to land. He's been flying for 6 days and 1 hour, the longest any manned balloon has ever stayed in the air.
Descend in 15 minutes.
The wind speeds on the ground were 13 knots. This isn't too bad. I mean, we do balloon landings in 13 knots. That's not a big problem. But these round-the-world balloons are bigger balloon systems and really don't control themselves as well.
After 6 days, landing a balloon on your own is not an easy matter. Despite his best efforts, the flight isn't over yet. His third attempt to land is no more successful than the previous two. In the tanks remains a large quantity of flammable propane. He begins to wonder if he'll ever get it down.
You control the descending in altitude with a gas valve letting out helium, and the gas valve in this balloon was designed for a balloon 1/3 the size. And these burners were designed for a balloon 1/3 the size. Basically, I didn't have the fineness of control that I should have in this kind of balloon. And sure enough, I botched the landing. This is very embarrassing. This is to have this balloon strung up in a tree. All that afternoon, I worked with the villagers. We're trying to figure out how to get this balloon out of the tree before somebody came with a camera to get a picture of this.
It was a safe landing. Congratulations to all at Chicago Control.
Steve Fossett had failed to make it around the world. But he had flown further and for a longer time than any balloonist in history. He'd stayed aloft for 6 days, 2 hours and 54 minutes, and flown halfway around the Earth.
I think it went better than I expected it to. I got to make a very long flight. It was measured out at 9,672 miles, which exceeded the distance record by over 4,000 miles.
All the teams will be back with new balloons in January 1998, and this time there are at least 6 crews getting ready. The first team may be the Global Hilton, piloted by record-setting balloonist Richard Branson, and Dick Rutan, the only man to have flown around the world non-stop in an unrefueled aircraft. It will be a formidable team indeed.
Who's up for the challenge this season? And what spells success or failure in the competitive world of ballooning? Take flight at www.pbs.org. To order the show for $19.95 plus shipping and handling, call 1-800-255-9424. And to learn more about how science can solve the mysteries of our world, ask about our many other NOVA videos.
How nervous are you? You're pretty nervous.
Perhaps we've all underestimated the difficulty of this task.
He's going for the coast of Europe.
Ground speed 65 knots. Hot damn.
There's a possibility of a rough landing, and we do have 3,000 kilos of propane on board.
Nova is a production of WGBH Boston. Major funding for Nova is provided by the Park Foundation, dedicated to education and quality television, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and viewers like you.
This is PBS.